Hello class, my name is Alexander Quintero and this is my first video blog for COUC501, Ethics and Legal Concerns in Counseling. This week we were made to look at a specific informed consent example in the real world, and I think this is especially important because while it's great getting all the information from the textbook and from the chapter videos and things of that nature, all the different learning materials, it's also important to look at how these actual concepts and legal requirements, that sort of thing, are applied in the real world. So looking at a specific informed consent example was really helpful in being able to see how the code of ethics and how the different legal requirements in my state were actually specifically applied in this counselor's eyes. So I looked at Debbie Davis Counseling, who is a counselor from Tallahassee, Florida. So I'm coming in from Florida, Sunshine State. And I think overall she did a really good job applying the different aspects of the code of ethics, applying the different aspects of informed consent, both from a legal and legal in terms of the state of Florida requirements, and the ethical concerns as well that go along with informed consent as laid out by the American Counseling Association. So just to highlight a few things, in the ACA Code of Ethics, specifically dealing with informed consent, you're looking at sections A.2.A and A.2.B. Just to highlight both of these, basically implicating that clients understand the services and the treatments that they're going to be given. This can also include the qualifications of the counselor, the theoretical approaches of the counselor, anything that might be relevant to how that counselor will go ahead and approach treating that client, and the logistics and implications there within it. So not only the treatment whatsoever, but also looking at certain fees that may be associated, the cost of the session, also the length of that session, just really laying out that client expectation as clear as can be so that there's no ethical breaches down the line when a client says they weren't necessarily given what they were paying for or what they were initially expecting, just making it nice and clear. Furthermore, something that Debbie Davis Counseling did very good here was adhered to A.4.B of the ACA Code of Ethics, talking about how counselors cannot impose their own values or beliefs on a client. Although Debbie Davis is a Christian counselor, she specifically says that she uses Christian concepts to guide in her efforts to assist you, but she will not impose her beliefs on you. So as someone who wants to be a Christian counselor myself, I think keeping that in the back of my mind is really important, that we can use Christian principles and kind of come from a Christian worldview, but there's a very tricky line that we're walking and making sure that we're not explicitly imposing beliefs on clients. And the way that I particularly look at that is that, as Christians, of course, we're called to preach the gospel, and you don't have to necessarily preach the gospel explicitly. You can do that implicitly in the way that you show love, in the way that you show treatment, and the way that you show grace to your clients. So that's something I just try to keep in the back of my mind, and of course, to stay true to A.4.B. Another aspect of the Code of Ethics that's very important is making sure that we're not guaranteeing results. And although we can lay out how therapeutic approaches may work in a specific client situation, or how we see a good fit between a counselor and a client in terms of being able to reach their therapeutic goals, as a counselor, you cannot guarantee results. So you can't come out and say something like, if you're having a substance abuse issue, if you come and see me, you're going to stop using drugs or something like that. You can just kind of make the case in terms of through therapeutic approaches that you may use and how you can help that client and why it's a good fit. In Darby and Weinstock 2018, they were talking about how confidentiality is often the largest issue in informed consent, specifically with counseling, and that there are limits for it, both from a legal and an ethical standpoint. So in the state of Florida, again, which I'm coming from, there are 4 limits to confidentiality. So first, whenever a client is in immediate danger to themselves or others, if there's an immediate abuse or neglect of children that's going on, you have to report it. Of course, if there's a court order, if a client is court ordered to see you, you oftentimes have to make reports back to the court on their progress, things like that. And if there is unethical or illegal conduct by another medical provider, you're required to report in the state of Florida. So specifically looking back to the Darby and Weinstock, confidentiality and the lines there within is often the biggest issue. So although it might not be a legal requirement, it's important to make sure you're upfront about those limits with your client to make sure that they understand if those lines are crossed, if they are in immediate danger or there's a child abuse involved, that you will have to report. So it's just very important and ethical to make sure that you set those expectations. So thanks. My name's Alex Montero, and this was my video reply to the first video in the class. See y'all next time.